Hey guys, I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. But I feel like there are men out there who get overlooked, who have stepped up to the plate, whether that's an uncle or whatever, who are a grandpa, a cousin, a brother, like whatever, that step up to the plate and step in as that figure or are just there for you. That also, happy Father's Day to you. Because it wasn't your responsibility, whether somebody walks out on their kid like a scumbag or, like in my life, you lose a parent. And I was lucky enough to have my uncle step in and be a father to me. And I have great uncles, all of them. I love you all. You were all there for me. But one in particular, who I lost last year, really stepped up to the plate. So we're going to talk about are my favorite ones are the ones that really come to me quickly in fiction. And there's more than you think. So what I think we're going to do is rattle them off in no particular order, just like my favorite ones that come to mind, because I realized this the older I got. When people were like, Piccolo is your favorite, even when I was a little kid, I'm like, yeah, no duh. Are you stupid? Of course Piccolo is my favorite. But then I realized, I think because of my uncle stepping in and because losing my dad at such a young age, I gravitated towards these pseudo dad characters. And I think we all love a lot of them. But I really would, even if they were obscure. Like I said, Piccolo isn't the toughest fighter, you would say. I would argue that. But yeah, I noticed that. And it happened with a lot of things. But these ones are just ones that come to mind and or are just my favorite. One that I feel like doesn't get acknowledgement enough, Uncle Owen from Star Wars. I feel like he does not get the acknowledgement he deserves. You could say Obi-Wan. I would say Obi-Wan. But Uncle Owen, stepping up to the plate, raising your nephew. It might not be in the way we deem okay, or we might disagree with some of it, but the fact of the matter is you took him in as your own, you raised him, you wanted him to be okay, and you loved him, especially with Obi-Wan coming out and seeing how him and Aunt Rue step up and are like, you ain't taking him. I really loved that. Another one that people might disagree with me with is Hank Schrader from Breaking Bad. Like, watch that ending season, and like I said, I don't know if it's just because of me and how I was raised, but it's like, Walter, we all love Walter, and I think he's a great father, except for the whole I'm creating an empire of illegalness thing, but Hank really steps up, and he's like, no, and if you watch that argument between him and Walter, it ain't about the money, it ain't about him being in the DEA and him being a criminal, it's about those kids ain't safe, and now you're setting me off, they're coming here. Let's go back to Star Wars, The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, you step up as a father, as a genuine father. And the only reason I don't have, because people argued with me on other social media platforms, like, how come you don't have Sirius Black in here? I don't consider Sirius Black a father figure as much as like a cool older cousin. You know what I mean? Also gets overlooked. Now, I think technically, if we really want to get into bloodlines and stuff, you know when you have an older cousin in your family who's like your mom or dad's cousin, you call them aunt or uncle? That's how Frodo and Bilbo are. Yeah, Bilbo, not a parent. And he always says that in the first book. I took to Frodo. Like, he was just my fave. Like, I took to him. And without all of these characters, nothing would happen, especially Lord of the Rings. If you guys really want me to go down that rabbit hole and drag in the Silmarillion and stuff, I'm pretty sure, now correct me if I'm wrong, Galadriel is raised and or her uncle takes over in raising her. I think Elrond's does. If we really want to talk about Aragorn, like, his family passes away and he's raised by the elves. Like, these are all pseudo families and they save Middle-earth. But yeah, I feel like Bilbo gets overlooked in that category. Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. Without Uncle Ben, Peter Parker would not become the man that he becomes. Piccolo. Piccolo is the greatest dad in Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Super, whatever you want to say. The best dad in the whole series. Goku is like, let me run around willy-nilly and do what I want. Die 17 times. Like, Vegeta, yeah, you're there, but not saying that your parenting is totally awful, but you're kind of rude. But no matter what, even if it's not just Goku, down the road with Trunks and Goten, Piccolo steps up and he's like, I'm gonna protect these kids. Like, that's Piccolo. Piccolo is the best dad/grandpa in the entire series. I think these ones are huge heavy hitters. And like I said, this is going to be a short one. And this is for, like I said, you uncles, you guys who step up, who aren't, the kids ain't your blood. If you're a grandpa, if you're a cousin, whatever, and you step in and you're there. I'm not saying you got to be a total dad to kids, but just being in their life is huge. Alfred raises Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne then raises several Robins, but you know what I mean? Like, they're both pseudo dads in their own right. But Alfred is that scene in the final Dark Knight trilogy, in The Dark Knight Rises, when Michael Caine says, I was here when you were born, when your screams were heard through Wayne Manor. That is heart-wrenching. That is such a sad, heartbreaking scene that Michael Caine plays so well. But you're like, man, dude, it really gets the relationship between Alfred and Bruce home. And that was my one qualm in The Batman. I love Andy Serkis. And I loved their relationship, and you could tell they were tight. But when Bruce, and I did like this, I just wish it would have been a bit more on screen together of them chumming it up. but it still hit. It still was great. I loved the Batman. My review's up. You can go check that out. Is when something happens to Alfred and he goes and runs to his bedside and he won't leave. And it's like, oh my God, that's so adorable. But my one issue was like, you should have had them on screen together more with doing more chummy stuff than just detective things. And this would have hit harder, but it still hits. But yeah, Alfred. And then, like I said, later on, Bruce. Now, my top 3. And I had like a list of 200, so feel free to add more. Auron from Final Fantasy X. I would say for Yuna, but more so for Tidus. Out of all the Final Fantasies, he is my favorite character in any of them. And like I said, I think that's the case because of my trauma and how I came up. But Auron is just as much a dad to Tidus as Jecht is, if not more. And he's just the baddest and the coolest. I mean, come on now. Yeah, but he's there, and he promises Jecht that he's like, I'm gonna watch over your son no matter what. I'm gonna figure out a way to Xanark. And the best part is like he only shows up when he wants to be seen, but he's been watching over Tidus the whole time. Now these two I didn't know who to put first for me, and that is Theoden from Lord of the Rings. And I mean, it used to always be emotional for me, but that scene when Eowyn's like, man, if I start crying through any of this, I'm sorry, because it's already taken me a minute to record because I keep bawling my eyes out. When she goes to take on the Witch King of Angmar. And I do love that change from the book to the movie, where in the book, he doesn't know that Eowyn saves him. In the movie, they change it so he does. But when she says, I will kill you if you touch him, and then takes on the Witch King of Angmar, and then goes to him and he says, my body is broken, and she says, I'm going to save you, and he goes, you already did. But their relationship throughout it, man, I cannot watch that without bawling my eyes out now. Even the scenes with him in his own keep, and he's all jacked up, and she tries to run to him, and Aragorn stops her. Jack me up now. Great, here we go. And then I think the best is Uncle Iroh. I mean, who doesn't love Uncle Iroh? But yeah, no, I cannot watch Avatar: The Last Airbender without bawling my eyes out now. Not just at certain things, but a lot of the time when Iroh comes on screen, I'm like, man, dude. Like, I miss my Iroh so much. Anytime anybody shares that picture where they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was a shot of, when they go into the memories and they show Iroh is holding a baby on the beach and there's a little kid. And somebody posted it and it went viral or something a long time ago, and I cannot look at it without crying now when it says, like, I'm just now realizing this was Iroh on the beach with his son, but he's holding baby Zuko. And I'm like, yeah, why don't you just kick me in the feelings really hard? Iroh is the best. And then, like I said, there's tons of these characters. Without Bilbo, the ring would have never made it to Mordor. And his love for Frodo, like, without that connection, that would have never happened. Without Alfred, there'd be no Bruce Wayne. Like, in Batman, without Batman, there's no Robin. Without all of these things, like, they have such an effect on these characters. And it's like, when people would say stuff like, oh, the Disney dead parent and all that shit, I'd be like, no, do you know how grateful I was for that as a kid? To have some, like, The Lion King's one of my favorites. It's in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And it's not just because it's great. It's because at that young age, I was like, oh, you got a dead dad? And I got a dead dad. Like, I can relate to that. A little kid, my dad passed away when I was 6. But when you're a little kid, it's not even the other stuff. It's the normal everyday things. Like, you don't, like, I remember being at a lunch table and kids going around the table being like, oh, my mom does this, my dad does this, whatever. Or like parent day or something like that. And I would just remember feeling so awkward and uncomfortable, like, man. And it wasn't even for saying like my dad is gone. Depending on the time that had passed, it was more of like, I don't want to make everybody else uncomfortable. You ever have those feelings? Like, if you are from the dead parent life, especially when you were young, you know what I'm talking about, like how awkward those situations are. Even today, I have to, when people say something, they're like, oh yeah, you, and then I'm like, I don't want to bring the mood down, they're dead. Even talking about making this video, I was like, I'm not trying to be morbid. I was like, but we're going to talk about pseudo dads and uncles on Father's Day, and I know I'm late, but that's what we're going to do because both of mine are gone, and one of them was around and in my life so much that I feel like I should talk about this. And it does matter. Like I said, it does matter. When I was little and I saw these characters with their uncles, with their aunts, that meant a lot to me, that I could relate to. I could, not only did I already use movies and fantasy and books as a way to cope with death and a way to escape the world, but I really do feel like after my dad passed, I really, really used it. You know what I mean? Like, I really dove deep into, like, I'd rather be in Middle Earth. And having these characters and having these like that normalizes it for people, especially young people, because family's complicated. And no matter what, it ain't the same for everybody. Some people are adopted. Some people don't have a parent. Some people had one walk out. Some people have one that's dead. Like, everybody has different things, you know? It's not the normal way. And yeah, these characters and these stories and stuff, they matter, especially when you're young. And I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds, and I just want to give a shout out to the dads who aren't dads, but they step up and they might as well be. On OF, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, it's all down below. I don't want to cry more, and I got like 5 more things to record. So yeah, I don't want to start crying.